Well, good morning. I thank you all for joining me. Welcome back to the Leaders Roundtable, a forum to reveal what the Democrats' so-called social spending plan will actually do to honest, hardworking Americans. Yesterday, we had a great discussion in here on the amnesty provisions in the bill. We spoke with mayors, with sheriffs, Border Patrol members along the border, because they're the ones who will bear the brunt of the Democrats' dangerous policies. Now today we're going to talk a different subject because there is so much in this bill. And remember what Nancy Pelosi said in the past, you have to pass it to know what's in it. We cannot afford to wait. We need the American public to know what's in this bill so it cannot pass. Today we're here to talk about an issue of great importance, the right to life. A right, as Ronald Reagan once said, without which no other rights have meaning. Everybody at this table has been fighting for the life for many, many years and decades. And what's been interesting of what the Democrats are doing this time has been a change of course of decades, of where people that had differences of opinion, but they all came together when it came to the Hyde Amendment. Sadly, Democrats in Congress are trying to chip that right away by putting the Hyde Amendment on the chopping block. I never thought it would be the day. I thought we were making great progress. The Hyde Amendment assures that no federal tax dollars is used to fund abortions. So if you have a difference of opinion, the one thing you respect, not to use hardworking American taxpayer money to fund an abortion. That's a place that people came together for decades. Democrats suggest Hyde is discriminative, but in reality, it is an essential safeguard that protects Americans' rights and has saved more than 2 million lives since it was first enacted in 1976. And that's what we're talking about. Since 1976, this has been the law of the land. Republicans and Democrats both voting for it. You've seen this many times, Chris, on the floor. For 50 years, it has been an overwhelming bipartisan position. In fact, you know who has been one of the most vocal supporters when he was in the Senate? Was Joe Biden. I always use this quote. He told one of his constituents in 1994, the government should not tell those with strong convictions against abortion, such as you and I, that we must pay for them. That was his quote. Now, I haven't said this very often, but I agree with Joe Biden at that moment in time. And so did everybody in Congress, mostly. Since then, the purpose of Hyde hasn't changed, and the strong convictions of American people against federal funding for abortions hasn't changed either. According to a recent poll, 58% of Americans believe Washington has no place determining whether a child can live or die. But one thing has changed, Democrats. Ever since they won the Senate, the House, and the presidency, somehow, even the most liberal Democrat, who always Hyde, has now changed it in almost every single bill. We can't abandon a long-standing bipartisan and essential safeguard for the right to life and the right of conscience, or we can affirm these inalienable rights for all Americans. As a proud pro-life American, I know which side I'm on. I know everybody on this table which side you're on because I know what you work on day in and day out. I'm grateful for everybody at the table. I am alarmed with so much that's in this bill, but this is one fundamental point that America had come together on for the last 50 years, and without one debate, Democrats have decided to change it in every element of every bill, and especially in this one. And when you're talking trillions of dollars being spent, you're talking lives being lost. And this is what America needs to know what's about this. And I've got a lot of great people here, but Michelle Fischbach, you have a long history. Your family has a history of always supporting life and defending the unborn. And you're a freshman. And but from one point here is you're doing an amazing job. You're on Rules Committee. You're former lieutenant governor. This is personal to you, is it not?
Absolutely. I was in the state legislature before. I spent my time there defending life. It is a core issue because when you defend life, it means so much. And I appreciate that you used the Ronald Reagan quote because it is that fundamental. And this, right, what the Democrats are doing now is not only an assault on the Hyde Amendment, but it is an assault on life. They are going after, they're trying to codify Roe versus Wade. They are doing everything that they can. And so I'm very proud to be a co-chair along with these gentlemen of the Pro-Life Caucus and to work hard and fight every day what we can do to protect the unborn. And the Hyde Amendments are very minimal protections for the unborn. And it is something that, since 1976, has been part of the law of the land, and we absolutely need to continue to fight to protect it. And I appreciate all that the organizations do to help us in that effort, and that we can do. And I particularly appreciate Congressman Smith and Congressman Harris for all of the work they've done in the past to make sure that this happens. So it is a horrible thing that the Democrats have this full assault on life going in every aspect, in every bill that they can get it into. They put that in every tricky way. And so we need to let the American people absolutely know what the Democrats are really doing. So thank you for putting this together.
Thank you. And Chris, you have just been a champion for so many years. I know when I first came into Congress, we worked so closely together. But even the most furthest pro-choice person in Congress, they've been supporting Hyde.
They have.
I mean, we've always come together on this. And did anyone talk to you ahead of time or anything about it? We just woke up one day and they're moving out of the bill when they had voted for years, and we now have a president who had defended it for a long time.
Well, Kevin, first of all, thank you for your leadership, the Republican leadership at your walking point. You're it. You've done a magnificent job in defending the most innocent people on earth, and that's unborn children. This is a human rights struggle to protect children from the violence of abortion, dismemberment, chemical poisoning, decapitation. They're the nasty elements of what an abortion actually does each and every day, and how effectively they've been able to do this stealthily. The media never focuses on it, except some of the media that might be here. But there's been a cover-up of the violence of abortion, and equally what it does to women. All of us work with, everyone here works with post-abortive women. The pro-life organizations are just magnificent, reaching out to the woman who is abandoned first to the abortionist, and then after the abortion, she's abandoned again. It is the pro-life movement that loves them both, and if one's gone, loves that woman, that other victim, that co-victim. So, and you're right, Biden said that he voted, and as a matter of fact, National Right to Life, and its great work that it does, has letters from him that he had sent to constituents that make it clear. I voted 50 times to not fund abortion, the Hyde Amendment, work for the Hyde Amendment. He even said, and this is the one that got me the most, it would protect both the woman and her unborn child. That's Joe Biden talking. Well, we want to protect the woman and her unborn child. So there's, you mentioned the over 2 million children who are alive because of Hyde. I remember the day we learned that it was at 1 million. And Hyde had a tear in his eye. I was with him. And he goes, wow, so many lives, so many people are on the earth. They're at soccer games, they're in school, they're now, because it's been so long, they have their own kids. So, yeah. And the estimate is 60,000 per year babies survive who would otherwise have been aborted. Now, this reconciliation bill, as we'll all get into, has multiple spigots of funding that will fund abortion on demand, reinsurance, the ACA, which, just a local record, I'll never forget when, and it won't go much longer, when the executive order was put out by Joe Biden in 2010. And you know what he said? This is how deceptive it was. He goes, the Act, the ACL, maintains current Hyde Amendment restrictions governing abortion policy and extends those restrictions to the newly created health insurance premiums. They're going to try to do that again now. And that's why our appeal to Joe Manchin and others is when they start wordsmithing deceptive language, please, you got to vet that because it's not going to do what it purports to do because they lied before. I even debated Jeanne on hardball in 2009, and I had the transcript with me. She said clearly the ACA, the Obamacare, would not fund abortions. And we had all the information, the plain text of the bill. Now the reconciliation bill is deja vu all over again. We're back to another, do you hear them talking about that? At their press conferences? No, because it's all being done stealthily. And one of them, just finally, and I'll finish on this, the Medicaid lookalike program. 12 states don't have extended or expanded Medicaid. All 12 states protect the lives of their unborn children in terms of no state Medicaid money, and of course, federal Hyde Amendment is still in force. It's not been, thank God, reversed, and I hope it will not be. But in these 12 states, Alabama, Florida, I won't go through more, Georgia, Kansas, 12 states, they now for the first time will be coerced into, by this reconciliation bill, into providing state funding for abortion under this provision. And all these, you said it, Kevin, trillions of dollars. Planned Parenthood is Child Abuse Incorporated. They've done over 8 million abortions in their own clinics. We're talking about just piling on money so they can promote, market, and then perform abortions all over the country. So it's we've got to defeat this reconciliation bill. Thank you for your leadership, and the people at this table, our co-chairs, Dr. Harris and certainly Michelle Fishbog, are doing unbelievably good work. Thank you.
Well, Andy, you are a member in Congress, but you're also a medical doctor, but you have always been a champion for life. And you have watched how medical technology has improved and the ability to save a life so early in the conception of it and grow into a beautiful life experience for many people.
My specialty was obstetric anesthesiology, and that was thousands of deliveries. Interestingly enough, in an institution where literally across the hall, they would do second trimester abortions, dismemberment abortions. Same institution, and you just wonder how, where's the healthcare consistency here? Very few people talk about Joe Biden's change of heart on the science. The science hasn't changed. I used to carry around my medical embryology textbook where it says quite clearly, at the time of conception, human life begins. That's it. That's your DNA. That's human DNA. It's not any other DNA on the planet. It's human DNA. It's a unique DNA. No other individual ever before or after will have the same DNA. And Joe Biden used to believe that life began at conception. And somehow now he's a science denier on it. He says, it's a science denier. I mean, this is plain science. Human life begins at conception. We can have arguments, a human person, things like human life begins at conception. So that's why it's so worrisome. The two things that are coming up in December, because this is one, potentially, but the other one is actually our regular appropriations bill, because of course that's where the Hyde Amendment is. The Hyde Amendment lives in the appropriations bill. Even if it survives in the appropriations process, this bill will not be covered by it. And I think Americans have to realize that. I mean, we have to do both. We have to win on both. We have to keep it in there, and then we have to make sure that those protections are in. If this bill ever passes, God forbid, that these protections are in this bill. The Medicaid expansion is a perfect example. I mean, interestingly enough, in all the discussion about equity and minorities, the fact of the matter is abortion predominantly affects minorities, and way out of proportion, more minority babies are aborted than non-minority babies. And we have to point that out, that when you remove Hyde protections, you actually disproportionately affect minorities, because they're the ones who tend to be protected by Hyde protection, especially in the Medicaid program. We just have to do that. This is an infrastructure bill. The real infrastructure that pregnant women need who are in crisis pregnancies are crisis pregnancy centers. That's what ought to be in this infrastructure bill. I looked through $3.5 trillion, hundreds of millions of dollars for health services, no infrastructure for crisis pregnancy centers. So that, a woman in a crisis pregnancy, really, they're only giving them one choice, taxpayer-funded abortion. Why not taxpayer-funded way out of this crisis pregnancy? Let's help this child. Because a human being is a terrible thing to waste, and the fact of the matter is, this bill funnels toward taxpayer-funded abortion without other options. There are no other options offered in this bill, and they could be. Could as easily say, yes, we'll fund this, but we'll also fund crisis pregnancy centers. Didn't do that. So I would urge Americans to look very carefully at what's happening here, because this really is a sea change. This is disrespecting, as you said, 58% of Americans in a recent poll said they think that taxpayer funds shouldn't be used. This is disrespecting the opinion of the majority of Americans. Yeah, and they're used to taxpayer
But you've been on appropriation for a long time, and so you have some very heated debates in there, because it's where you spend your money. But at the end of the day, even those who would be on the far left would support Hyde and vote for the appropriation bill in all the Congresses before.
They have.
Always.
They have. I mean, their votes are on record. They have, yes.
But did you have a debate before Hyde coming out? I mean, no, they took the majority. Science has not changed, but they decided to change.
Yeah. It was just evaporated from the bill. Yeah.
After saving 2 million lives.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why we cannot, they want to propose this, but if we defeat it, we can beat this back. Carol, President of National Right to Life, you have spent day in and day out saving lives for so many babies. And you've watched what Hyde has done. You would like to go much further, but I mean, the one thing America had agreed upon, don't use taxpayer funding, whether you agreed or disagreed on this subject.
And this reconciliation bill will obviously do just the opposite. So Leader McCarthy, Representative Smith, Fishbach, Harris, thank you for the opportunity to be here today to talk about the way that this reconciliation bill will radically expand funding for abortion. I am Carol Tobias, President of National Right to Life. Now, since its inception, National Right to Life's organizational mission has been to defend the right to life of innocent human beings. Consistent with that mission, we are, of course, opposed to government funding of abortion and government subsidies for health insurance plans that cover abortion. Abortion is not health care. Until this Congress, the Hyde Amendment, as it has been stated here, enjoyed 45 years of bipartisan support. And yet today, the Hyde Amendment is being targeted at every turn by the Democrats in Congress. The Hyde Amendment is widely recognized as having significant impact on the number of abortions in the United States, saving an estimated 2.4 million American lives. Now, despite overwhelming taxpayer opposition to paying for abortions, the Democrat spending spree deliberately excludes Hyde Amendment language with the goal of expanding abortion on demand paid for by tax dollars. I want to touch on two especially horrible provisions in the reconciliation spending spree related to Obamacare that will inevitably lead to more plans covering abortion. First, the House Committee on Energy and Commerce language would actually mandate abortion coverage in Obamacare plans in the states that did not expand Medicaid. This is a shocking override of state law and one that will mean abortion coverage in states that lawfully elected to have exchanges without abortion coverage. The 2010 Obamacare law authorized massive federal funding to subsidize millions of private health plans that cover abortion on demand, a sharp departure from longstanding law at that time. Now, like the language we are seeing on the reconciliation bill, Obamacare created multiple new streams of federal funding that would be they're self-appropriated, meaning they are outside the regular flow of funding in the appropriations and they are not subject to the Hyde Amendment. The Obama health care law allows premium assistance credits to be directed to health insurance coverage that includes abortion, but also permitted states to specifically ban abortion coverage. 25 states, half of the states, passed legislation to do so. The Democrats' radical spending bill starting in 2024 would explicitly override the laws of 12 of these states that did not expand the Medicaid programs. Further, the legislation mandates that Obamacare Silver Exchange plans cover abortion and transportation for abortions without cost sharing for the Medicaid coverage gap population. This means not only that the government will force people's plans to cover abortion, but also that they will force plans to pay for transportation in and out of the state to do so. Obamacare specifically excluded abortion as a required essential health benefit. This plan would override that provision. Second, the Democrat spending spree would make the Obamacare expansions from the COVID-19 American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 permanent. This would further subsidize Obamacare exchange plans that cover abortion and subsidize millions of individuals' taxpayer-funded plans that cover abortion on demand. The COVID-19 American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 included the most significant step in the last 10 years toward expanding Obamacare. The legislation included a 2-year expansion of the Obamacare premium subsidies. It not only increased the size of the subsidy for those already eligible for assistance, but also extended those subsidies to people earning more than 400% of the poverty level. Making this expansion permanent, combined with the other Obamacare provisions, will have the effect of driving large numbers of people into plans that cover abortion, leading to more destruction of unborn life. We look forward to working with our grassroots and you here at the leadership to stop all of this radical expansion of abortion. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Marilyn, you've been a member of Congress. Before you were a member of Congress, you have always fought for the unborn, and you continue it, and I highly respect you, especially your work at Susan B. Anthony. Talk to us a little bit about what you're seeing happening, especially so you understand what's in this bill better than others as well.
I understand it very well, and it's amazing how far they've gone in trying to fund abortion and force taxpayers to pay for someone else's abortion. And Leader McCarthy, I remember years ago we were in this room in groups of meeting with you. You were right there, and I was right where Michelle is. And we were asking you to defend life and lead on life. And I have to say, you have overperformed. You have exceeded our expectations, and you have our sincere admiration and gratitude, and then you have people like this alongside. So it was a commitment you made, and you have fulfilled it in every way, and then some. So we appreciate it. The zealousness of these Democrats on the abortion issue is amazing, and I'd like to go a little deeper on the Medicaid-like program that you mentioned. Medicaid is funded with an appropriation for Labor, Health, and Human Services, but this new program that looks like Medicaid, that people think it's just like, it's not funded that way. It's funded directly from the Treasury. So there are no high protections, and God willing, we can keep that. So that's important to note, and you've said too, they're going after those states that have life-affirming laws, and they want to do away with their ability to protect those moms and babies. And, you know, when we talk about how Americans feel about this, Senator Joe Manchin is just, look at him. He's a symbol of the bipartisan support of the Hyde Amendment. Democrats, Republicans, and independents. And so you talk about Hyde being on the books for decades. The Hyde Amendment has been in effect. And now they want to upheaval everything, throw out all protections. So we're here to stand alongside, and we want to do everything we can. Abortion is not health care. That's what they keep saying. We know it's not health care. We know it's the destruction of human life. And so the Hyde Amendment that has saved almost 2.5 million lives now, we'll fight for it with everything in our being, and we're so grateful for your work, all of you.
Marilyn, you brought up a good point that the Hyde Amendment isn't partisan, that members on both sides of the aisle, it doesn't matter what spectrum, are you very conservative, you're moderate, or you're very, very liberal, have voted for the Hyde Amendment. And you talk about Joe Manchin right now, he told the president the Hyde Amendment has to be back in. So I don't understand why you would take it out if you've got, and you've had support all this time. Now, Jeanne, you do so much work on the March for Life, where we bring Americans across the country, and it's not based upon one party. It's based upon the belief and the support of helping the unborn. And that goes across party and everywhere else. And it's amazing when that week happens. We all know it because you see everybody out here, and from young kids to olders, and they're marching. It's usually cold, and people are having a good time. They come by for coffee ahead of time and donuts, and your program is just amazing.
Well, thank you, Leader McCarthy. I was also at the meeting that Representative Musgrave mentioned a few years ago, and I had forgotten about that until you just mentioned it now, but I too want to thank you for your leadership on this issue and for helping us to be unified within the movement on what's most important, and for your co-leaders here who we just respect and admire so very, very much. So thank you for all of that. So yes, I'm blessed to speak on behalf of collectively millions of marchers over the years. Of course, we've been in existence since the year after Roe v. Wade, Doe v. Bolton, And abortion is the largest human rights abuse of today. There's just no question about it. And it absolutely isn't healthcare, as we're all saying here. That's such a lie. And we need to continue to just say that, because healthcare has to do with the health of a patient, right? We're talking about two patients here when a woman is pregnant. So our supporters are from every demographic, from both parties. And they take their collective voice to the Hill every year, and they will do that again with this particularly. So our marchers are strongly supportive of Hyde. As we've all mentioned, are the large majority of Americans. So much has been said there, the 58%, et cetera. I'm going to underscore one other article, just to turn to the media for a minute. Recently, a far-left writer for Slate had an op-ed reminding Democrats how very unpopular funding for abortion is. This is quoting him, "In every poll, a majority of Americans opposes public funding of abortion. These polls aren't close. The average gap between the pro-funding and the anti-funding position is 19 percentage points." So yes, sadly, the pro-abortion party right now has gone from safe, legal, and rare to abortion on demand without apology, paid for, if Hyde is removed, by your taxpayer dollars. But guess what? That's totally out of touch with mainstream America. Mainstream America is not interested in that extreme position. The large majority of Americans would limit abortion at most of the first 3 months of pregnancy. All of us sitting around this table know that any abortion is one too many, but hey, can't we at least move in that direction to save lives and certainly protect Hyde here? Arguably, as we've all said here, the most effective pro-life public policy in this country, saving over 2.4 million. Representative Smith already mentioned that, as it was first included as a rider. It was upheld by the Supreme Court, by the way. There's so much more to say, but most of it has been said here. I'm struck. We were reminiscing about the famous Stupak moment in 2009, and I'm just remembering that terrible executive order that was a fruit of that of course the then Chief of Staff, Rahm Emanuel, came out afterwards and admitted that that executive order wasn't worth the piece of paper that it was written on. So for anyone who says that actually did something, we know that they inside knew that it did absolutely nothing. And I just want to say decisions matter, and there are so many fruits that come from decisions, and we saw such bad fruits from that. We lost the whole bipartisan approach to this on the Hill after Stupak made that. I mean, it was a total game changer in terms of our working for the life issue. And so I only say that by way of Senator Manchin, stand up for what's right. I mean, not only is it favorable with the American public, but it's right. And that's what we have to stand up for here. So thank you again for having us. Excited about the ongoing conversation here.
Well, you had Senator Biden for years not just vote for it, but defend it. Defend it to his own constituents, proudly. And so we don't want Manchin to make a mistake that others, to believe that if they signed something else on the side, that he would continue to protect him. We have some from the media here. Don't know if you guys have some questions.
Yes.
All right.
Leader, thank you so much for holding this. As a member of the Catholic media, it's very important to the Catholic faith of protecting the Hyde Amendment, along with the other amendments, the Helms Amendment and other provisions, anti-abortion provisions. And if I can elaborate a little bit on that, about how this reconciliation bill not only deals with the Hyde Amendment, but it also deals with international funding of abortions throughout the world.
Yeah, I'm going to turn to Chris Smith, because it's wrong for me. He's been a champion, be it up at the UN, be it everywhere else. And when you're talking trillions of dollars, I mean, we're focused on Hyde because that's something that brought everybody together. We're talking trillions of dollars. They can fund abortion not just in America now with your taxpayer money. You could be spending your taxpayer money around the world. And you have just been a champion on this.
Thanks for the question. There really is an all-out assault, a global assault on unborn children everywhere. And sadly, the command and control is to be found at the White House and at the U.S. Department of State. And as Dr. Harris knows so well on the Appropriations Committee, we already lost, although I think we'll save it when it gets to the Senate, and that is the Helms Amendment. And what the pro-abortion lobby wants now, it's everything. It's abortion on demand till birth, and every one of us pay for it, not just in the United States of America, but all over the world. And the Harris poll asked that question: do you want your taxpayer dollars being used to pay for abortions overseas? 77% of the people said no. And that includes a lot of people who aren't on our side. But they do have that sense that why are we paying for abortions overseas? And when you put trillions of dollars into one spigot after another, one fund after another, both domestically and internationally, the unborn child does not have a chance, nor does his or her mother. Because they lie, they deceive. We know that. I mean, the abortion movement has prevailed, at least with the major media, because of the deceptive practices that they employ each and every day. I mean, they never talk about the baby. It's incredible. And Dr. Harris knows, you know, he was at Johns Hopkins for how many years? And as he said, second trimester abortions being done while he's across the hall saving children. So it is a serious problem. We think, you know, Joe Biden is the abortion president. He once was a modest pro-lifer, not totally with us on everything. He has now, for political purposes, completely thrown his lot with the other side. And I find that tragic and sad. I mean, what? Why is he doing this? And why are the other people? As I said in the past, and then I'll yield to my colleagues to speak to it, but you know, in the developing world, and I've chaired the Africa Global Health Human Rights Subcommittee for years now, I'm a ranking member. I've been all over Africa, all over Latin America, all over countries that they want their children to survive and thrive. They want the first 1,000 days of life, where nutrition from the moment of conception to the second birthday is provided, supplementation so that stunting goes away and cognitive abilities are enhanced because they have that nutrition. They don't want chemicals that kill, or dismemberment, or handheld devices that tear the child to pieces. And I've been in refugee camps all over Africa as well. I remember being one in Sudan. And the NGOs were like marketing the abortion. So I asked a group of women, 25 or so African women. I almost felt bad asking, do you want abortions? And every one of them, animated and very, very focused. They want their babies. And they want them to, like I said, to survive and thrive. It is the imposition of a mindset that is anti-child and anti-mom, anti-mother, and we're paying for it. So that's why Andy, Dr. Harris on his committee, obviously Michelle Fishbach at Rules, all of us are pushing very hard because we're in a very, very window of crisis where you have an abortion president, majorities in both houses in the Senate, and I'll finish with this. We've been here before. Democrats, when Clinton came in, had the House and the Senate. When Obama came in, had the House and Senate in Democrat hands. We did have more pro-life Democrats then than we do now. Manchin, Casey, hopefully Casey, Senator Casey. Well, you know, the legacy of his father, who was as pro-life as it gets as a governor, he should be speaking up on the Hyde Amendment, and very aggressively so. You know, I've been in Congress 41 years. None of this is worth it. To say that, oh, I might lose my election, then so be it. There's a baby's life and a mother's life hanging in the balance, and in this case, millions of them. They're worth any sacrifice, personal and collectively, that we endure to protect those lives.
Speaking of that, would you suggest the upcoming 2022 election, what do you think effect this will have on the Democratic Party because of the views and the pro-abortion stance that they're taking? What effect do you think it'll have in the upcoming elections? Maybe Dr. Harris or Congresswoman?
You know, let me tell you, there's only one thing less popular than funding abortions in the United States with taxpayer dollars. That's funding them overseas with taxpayer dollars. If that provision is not inserted into our appropriation, and we in fact fund taxpayer-funded abortions overseas, let me tell you something, that's a very unpopular position to take with the American public. But that's how radical these positions have become. The American public on a wide variety of issues, it's only one issue, view what's going on, the radicalism of this administration. This is only one example of it. But this adds, this makes their mountain harder to climb in 2020. It's already hard enough to climb. I would advise them for their political benefit, please give in on this. You know, put that Hyde Amendment back in, put in the Helms Amendment, put in all the protections against international abortions. But if they choose otherwise, then so be it. They will pay the political consequences.
And I will just add that I think this is so important that we are telling the American people what is going on, what is in these bills, what they're proposing, because I do think that, you know, we have the polling, but in addition to that, we are changing those hearts and minds because they are understanding better the full assault on life that the Democrats are after. And Dr. Harris, you mentioned earlier about the crisis pregnancy centers that are so critical, and I just, as a reminder, I glanced at the papers, it's 1.75 billion that is in this bill that could potentially use to build, to not just to fund, but build new abortion clinics for elective abortions. And this is the kind of thing that I think when we talk to the American people about, they understand better what's really going on. And I don't think it bodes well for those elections next year, that they are going after full strike and full on to stop any pro-life legislation.
We have one more question and we'll have to vote. Sure. This is Rebecca Downs at Town Hall. Thank you guys for being here. So I've noticed we've talked a lot about Senator Joe Manchin, a pro-life Democrat. Given his position, would you say that speaks to the likelihood of this passing? And should it pass with what you were saying about states and their kind of version of taxpayer dollars going towards abortions? How likely do you think this will be litigated in the courts? Could states bring a suit to ensure that taxpayer dollars don't have to go towards abortions?
Well, I would just suggest we do have to run for a vote. Sure. And then I hope you'll keep asking questions. You know, Marilyn, they know this better than anybody, but if the Congress authorizes this, it would be very hard to get a court to overturn this permissive policy. So, you know, we need to win it here, right here. And our appeal to Joe Manchin, who has been a hero, he has stood up very courageously. My deep concern is at 4 a.m. in the morning, when the wordsmithers from the White House are sitting in his office and they come up with a bogus solution, I think it's not a solution at all, that he take it, vet it with the lawyers and the pro-lifers and not accede to something, because again, if they're promoting it, it's going to be, I think, a fraud. And then when they say they, I'm talking about the White House people and others. So, and we've been here before, so this is deja vu. We get to the 11th hour with pressure. People are outside his door, outside of his boat, picketing, and everything else. He's endured so very well, as did Biden for a long time. And just got to see it through. And as Michelle and Andy have both indicated, the American people are with us. They are with us. The polls show it. I hear it. Feedback. And you know, as Cuomo and the governor of Virginia and others have talked more and more about how they're for afterbirth abortion. You know, killing the baby after he or she is born. It just underscores the dehumanization that they are so much a part of here. You know, birth is an event. It's not the beginning of life. It's an event that happens to all of us. And with ultrasound, the myth of non-human growing and developing inside the womb has been shattered. We know that's a baby, and they feel pain and all the other things that we've been working on for so long. So, but funding it, that is so basic, and as you said, for their own sake, the Democrats should say, we need to find an off-ramp on this one, because the American people are not with them.
On behalf of Catholics and believers and even non-believers throughout the world, thank you for protecting the lives of the unborn and for all of what you do.
Thank you. Please ask any questions, but I just...
Yes, thank you so much, everybody. We appreciate it. You have a few more.
Thank you very much. And thank you all to the organizations for being here today, because it is so important that we have the exchange and the grassroots here with us talking about this important issue. Thank you.